I used to go swim the birds. Mommy goes out there nice. Yeah, I just love that mocker. So good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We're almost done with chapter 4. Then I think it gets easier. Seems like we've been in chapter 4 forever. Chapter. When I revise it next time, I'm going to shorten some of that. One of the problems is that we say things over and over so many different times in here, you know, that I really get tired of hearing it. But we're supposed to work together with my friend Judy, as editor, you know. We noticed that, but thought that each place that stuff gets repeated, it gets repeated slightly differently, and we hoped that that would be a good technique to let it sink in, but I think it's sinking us instead of sinking in. So maybe we can shorten it. Any event, we're at page 62, wrapping up what appears to be maybe we'll get started on the human condition. Hopefully we do that one in a couple of weeks. That should be pretty fast. I think it's fairly lightweight to chapter 5, and then chapter 6 and 7 we'll spend as long as we want to, because there's a lot of topics, and we may spend a week on each one if people want to, you know, various types of meditation, various principles and practices and things. But let's get started here and see how far we get. We'll get through this for sure, and maybe we can get into the next chapter.
Error cannot exist.
Let's start with error cannot exist. Okay.
Error cannot exist. If what is all there is. What is the only creator. If what is the only creator, then for error to exist, what is would have to have created it. And since there is no creation separate from what is, this really means error would have to be an aspect of itself. But what is cannot contain anything in conflict with itself and be eternal, unchanging harmony and perfection. There can't be anything destructive in it, or it would not be eternal. So there can't be error in
that for each paragraph in case there's questions. Amazing sentences. Questions? Okay, go ahead, please.
So there can't be error in the one reality. Then, what is error? Everything that we call error or evil is hypnosis. The universal human beliefs in error are being formed by mind. And these beliefs of error and evil must be lies. And they're impotent. They have no power unless we accept them. But if we do, they outfigure in our individual experience.
A lie has no power unless it's believed. False beliefs that are accepted manifest. Those that are recognized as a lie don't. We might know that the flu virus is impotent, but still fear cancer. So we would never catch flu, but we would contract cancer. Our work is to recognize all the lies, know what the corresponding truth is, and replace the lies with the truth. Then the picture changes.
I was listening to a Joel tape the other day. he was reading an article in which some spiritual magazine had sat down a very well-renowned priest, minister, and rabbi and asked all three of them where error came from. And they essentially all said, well, we don't know, but, maybe God didn't teach us, or God is this, or God is that, but essentially they said, we don't know where it came from, and it's just something God does. And Joel says, that what he really says is, well, that just shows that priests and ministers and rabbis don't read the Bible, because the answer is very clear in the Bible. And he goes on to point out various chapters that are places in both the Old and the New Testament that, from Hebrew prophets and also from Jesus, that essentially say that, that there is no God in the human experience, which is something we've talked about before. There is no God in human experience. Human experience is human consciousness, and it's godless. And it's in duality, and there's all the goods and the bads, and the good all turns into bad, and the bad all turns into good. And healthy people get sick, and sick people get healthy, and living people get die, and then dead people live again, and come around again, and but there really is no God in the human picture except where it is brought in through a particular individual. In other words, if there's not an individual experiencing the presence of God, then there is no God in human consciousness. He says that, with respect to healings, that he says a lot of practitioners, when they heal somebody, say, "Oh, it wasn't me, it was God." Tells this joke about the guy that says, "Oh, okay, I'll make the donation to the church then rather than paying you for the healing." But the fact is that in the case where, let's say, Jesus did a healing, it wasn't Jesus, it was God. But that wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a Jesus there who had the consciousness that was sufficiently developed to be aware of the presence of God and bring it into that picture, in which case the presence of God could dissolve the error. And the point that hopefully we're going to get through this in the next couple of chapters is that the error is the part of the hypnosis. And in the presence of an enlightened consciousness, it dissolves because it's not there. Like the person who's hypnotized to see the white poodle sees the white poodle, but when somebody comes in that recognizes that the guy is hypnotized, snaps his fingers and wakes the guy up, the white poodle disappears. Because it was never there, just in the guy's mind. And in the same way, what we call error or evil, all that stuff, is just a picture in our mind that will dissolve in the presence of God's consciousness. Yeah, louder. Some of us didn't get it. You clap your hands. It's like clicking your heels with red slippers on, see? You wake up in Kansas. Unfortunately, you wind up back in black and white, don't you? Yeah. All the color goes out of your life when you click your red slippers up. All right, let's go on.
Good and evil are impersonal. Since what we call evil is nothing more than a universal belief in more than one power expressing itself wherever a mind responds to it, it follows that the person that apparently perpetrates the evil act is not evil. She or he is, in fact, a spiritual being, an expression of what is. But in the Leelaa, in the role he or she is playing, the person is at a level of awareness receptive to certain universal human beliefs and is hypnotized into doing the things we call evil. There is no such thing as an evil person, just one ignorantly available. There are actions we label evil, and there are universal human beliefs we call evil, but it's never part of an individual. This was the premise upon which Joel was able to accomplish such amazing healings. He separated the error from the person, making it easier to lift the person above it.
So that's what I was saying last week to the viewers that were here. If we're seeing a good person, what we're seeing is God, or what is, or transcendental consciousness expressing itself through that person as good. And if we see an evil person, what we're seeing is human consciousness expressing itself through that person as evil. And the transcendental consciousness is using a person who is available to transcendental consciousness, and human consciousness is using a person that's available to human consciousness. And it's all just these two consciousnesses, the human consciousness and the transcendental consciousness, expressing themselves through people depending on what they're available to at the given moment. And we can go back and forth. We do go back and forth from one to the other.
What would happen if Jesus was in a concentration camp? What happens when someone who recognizes the error in the midst of the apparent?
Well, there's one story about a Christian Science practitioner who was very high, who went into a cancer ward in a cancer hospital to treat a particular patient and worked with that patient and cleared out the entire ward. The air dissolved. I don't know if it's possible for a Jesus to get into a concentration camp. I don't know if the story of the line can unfold. He may not be able to even see such a thing. But the principle is a principle no matter where. And if that level of consciousness were there, the picture could not sustain. The hypnosis that there is a concentration camp couldn't sustain.
I hear you, were you talking about that if it is God, right? Therefore there's no error. If you're saying there is no God in human consciousness, how can you, seems a contradiction.
Well, human consciousness isn't real. What I'm saying is human consciousness is hypnosis. Human consciousness is like the person who sees the white poodle. The hypnotized person who sees the white poodle. There is no white poodle there.
Right, but there's a person which is part of God that thinks he sees white poodle, and that thought is of God. Is it not? I mean, it is what it is.
Were you here when we did the thing on Leelaa?
Leelaa, yes, it is a Leelaa.
Huh?
On this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was.
See, that's all part of the Leelaa.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the roles we play. What I'm saying is that there's no God in the play. God is the actors. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
God is the actors are playing roles. And I'm saying there is no God in the play, except, of course, where the role of one person is an enlightened person who brings God into that scene to play. It has no effect. I mean, God is all there is, and all the people are spiritual beings, but they're not the people that we see. And what we're seeing is our concepts of people, of spiritual beings, and what we're seeing is concepts of the activity, and these concepts include concepts of good and evil. It's part of the Leelaa, part of the play. If you're sitting in the audience watching a play and the play is full of murders and such like, you're seeing the murder and maybe you're horrified by the brutality of the murder, and yet deep down inside you always know that it's just a play and it doesn't affect you, and you're going to go home in an hour and a half and do whatever. Okay, so there's this level of unreality there. And you would say that there was no God in that murder scene. Okay? But nonetheless, all part of the Leelaa, and the Leelaa is all part of God. Okay. Let's go on.
We experience our concepts of what is an expression of itself as individual beings. We experience those concepts in universal human belief that we accept. We experience finite, dualistic, conditioned concepts. And the experience can be harmonious or erroneous based on what our concepts are.
But we're experiencing our concepts. We're not experiencing reality.
We give power to evil not only by believing in it, but also by fighting it. Resisting evil shows that we believe it has power. We are sustaining the evil and resisting.
Which of course is why Jesus is quoted as saying, resist not evil. Don't sustain it.
Good behavior is just as impersonal as evil behavior is. A person approaching transcendental consciousness may appear to be good, but that too is not the person. That is the lack of the person. Personal sense becoming transparent. The good is the expression of what is the nature of infinite perfection and harmony to the individual. What we call good from a truly good person is what is expressing itself as good. But it's still a concept. Good behavior is just as much a concept in the illusion and the strange as evil behavior is. There's no difference. They're just human concepts. It's just that we move from a concept that is dictated by universal human belief to a concept that is dictated by belief.
Good. Yeah, pass the book along because the print's bigger than there because the light's low here.
What would it look like to resist evil versus not resisting it? Can you give me an example?
It might look like walking away rather than fighting. It might look like not taking somebody to court rather than taking somebody to court. It might look like what it would really look like is if you're confronted by evil, if you're clear, then you know that that's just hypnosis, okay? And if you can rise above that, then it can't harm you. So the local simple solution would be to walk away from it rather than fighting. And resist not in a very practical sense, but another way of not resisting it would be to rise above it. And if you want a solution to the problem, just walking away from the problem may not solve it. But rising above it and knowing that it's just hypnosis and that the person is just hypnotized, and that it's all just impersonal human consciousness there, and that it's not the person at all, and that it's all impersonal, and having thoughts like this and lifting yourself above it will change the picture. The picture will change if you know that it's hypnosis. If you know there's not an evil person there, the picture will change. Because it is the outpicturing of your belief.
So would God be resisting
No.
evil?
No, Gandhi did not resist evil. That was the amazing thing about this whole thing, is that he did not resist evil. He just ignored it. He proceeded to, what he really did was stand on principle. He just stood on the principle of what he knew to be right. And he just stood there and let them, Bill talks about letting the ocean break up against you. Gandhi did not resist. He just did what he needed to do. He just did what was right. He wasn't at all concerned about the British, but he would go down to the sea and make salt, regardless of whether they said that was okay or not. And when they show up with all sorts of with guards and such like to stop him, he was stopped. And so he would change direction and go and make the salt somewhere else, but he would not fight. Although I'm sure most people would have thought the British rule there was evil. Gandhi probably didn't think it was evil. He just thought it wasn't, it was not good for the Indian people, and he was standing on principle, I think, mostly. Amazing guy.
Is the resisting of evil similar to the concept of forgiveness, where once you truly forgive, you're at a place where there's nothing to forgive? I mean, humanly, we can't resist evil anyway. We have to see it clearly, and then there's no evil to resist at that point.
That's right. The whole thing washes it always is that way. When you see it clearly, this whole thing is about there is no evil. I guess what the previous paragraph is called. There is no evil. There is no error, but then read that as there is no evil. It's all hypnosis. And if you truly get how completely impersonal evil is, well, let me say this probably. The other reason this thing is so repetitive is that I say it and then not knowing it's going to be said in the next paragraph. But if you truly get that human consciousness is nothing more than all beliefs, and it has no center, and it has no focus, it has no intent, it doesn't decide that it's going to propagate this evil belief today, it doesn't have any choice about evil beliefs, it just has 6 billion people, and 4 billion of them believe this, and 2 billion of them believe this, and 1 billion of them believe this, and all these beliefs are around, and there are people around, and different people are receptive to different beliefs. Human consciousness does not decide, I'm going to do this to her. Human consciousness just sits there believing, and various people pick up what they pick up. And if they pick up certain beliefs in human consciousness, they may result in actions, activities that we would call evil, okay? But it's absolutely impersonal in the sense that human consciousness has no direction and no choice and did not select a target, and there's none of that going on. It's also impersonal in the sense that the person that picked it up isn't aware that he or she picked it up and did so only because of their ignorance. So there's nothing evil going on. There's nothing going on at all except the Leelaa. Okay? And there's nothing to forgive because you don't need to forgive ignorance. You don't forgive ignorance. You educate ignorance. Okay? So it's totally impersonal, and if you really see that, then you'll get an elevated enough consciousness. If you really see that, you'll get an elevated enough consciousness that it won't affect you. And there'll be no reason to resist it. Yeah, no, that's all I am.
So, just this last sentence really struck me. I was thinking it's about dropping concepts, and it says it's about just switching concepts of seeing things that are by human belief versus the concept of what is.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at what Chris is saying, about all evil being impersonal. I mean, is that maybe where I get into trouble thinking that good is personal? Like, if there's some good, I think it's from that person.
Maybe that's where you get in trouble. All good is absolutely as impersonal as all evil. All good is what is, and expressing, and some people are able to pick that up. And that may be intentional, maybe in the sense of being conscious, but it's not their, it's not a personal accomplishment that they're able to be in tune with transcendental consciousness, because there was no person. It's a lack of person that expresses good.
So I'm thinking that my good is personal, meaning like that person, is that how that could possibly make someone else my source?
Sure. Yeah, if you think,
thinking only good comes from that person.
Thinking that anything comes from that person. We're going to get to a chapter back here, or maybe we already did it. Everything is effect. Everything is an effect. Everything we're looking in a mirror. We're looking at a reflection in a mirror. You're looking at yourself in the mirror, looking at the reflection, and you're trying to get something out of the reflection. Okay? Good or evil. If you think they're good, you're more likely to try to get something from it. If it's a good reflection, you're more likely to try to get something from it, or more likely to try to take credit for it, but nonetheless, it's a reflection. There are no sources out there. What we're experiencing is the manifestation in mind of the content of the consciousness that's operating mind. And it's all an effect. There are no sources out there of good or evil. All just an effect. It's just the content of consciousness being formed by mind. And if it's good, in quotes. There is no good and evil. It's just what's happening. It's just what's happening. And good and evil is an afterthought that we add to something because it happens to correspond to what we want or like or desire, or are conditioned to call it good. And we call it evil because it happens to be something that we don't want or are conditioned to call evil. But good and evil are labels that we tack onto it after the event. We tack those on personally. And what we're looking at, it's not good or evil. I was saying, if you look at a picture, a painting, and a picture is not good, not beautiful and not ugly. It's just a picture. And to me it's beautiful, and to you it's ugly, or vice versa. Perhaps because of how we're conditioned, or our training, or our preferences, or what have you. But if I have a beautiful picture, I have just created ugly. Because by having a beautiful picture, then I have to have, in my mind, that I'm comparing it with an ugly one. Okay? So when I see beauty, I'm creating ugly. When I see good, I'm creating bad. In my own picture, which is the only place it exists. In my own mind. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me at all if you see good and evil. Okay? That's irrelevant to me. I get into trouble when I see good and evil. So, and the only good and evil I see is the good and evil that I tack on. The fact that you're tacking good and evil onto something doesn't affect what I see. Okay? So it's all totally impersonal. Who's next?
Suppose it's the outmixing of our beliefs. What we see with our five senses are very limited human concepts of reality. If we are spiritual beings and the expression of what is a spiritual expression, then we are a spiritual creation. Spiritual expression is not material or...
Read that previous paragraph on here with the right place. Go back to it's all just the out picture.
It's all just the outpicturing of our beliefs. We're seeing what we believe. When we see disease, we're not really seeing our belief in disease. But when we see disease, we're really seeing our belief in disease. When we see poverty, we're seeing our belief in poverty. When we see man's inhumanity to men, we're seeing our belief in inhumanity. When we see error, we're not seeing a belief that all there is what is. That all there is this one eternal, harmonious, blissful experience that the mystics all report. When we are dehypnotized, we'll see things in their true light. We'll be using mind as an instrument for having an experience more like what is. I am. What we see with our five senses are very limited human concepts of reality. If we are spiritual beings and the expression of what is spiritual expression, then we are spiritual creation. Spiritual expression, not material or supported. But what we see are finite concepts of what is, consistent with the finite senses that we believe we have, and the finite human bodies that we believe we are. Human consciousness believes that we are bodies and minds, but bodies and minds are not part of our spiritual being. They are part of the human experience in life.
I just love that, the fact that we have a body, and inside our body is our mind. And we think, and inside our mind, there's this concept of our body, which we think we are. It's just as a loop. I think I'm inside my mind, but I think my mind's inside me. Oops. Go ahead.
Most of us, when we say I am, are talking about our body and our mind, but that's not who we are.
I am is really the impersonal, individual expression of consciousness that I am. The I that I am today and the I that I was 25 years ago are identical. My body was younger then. In fact, every cell in my body was different. The content of my mind was different. Almost every idea, thought, and belief that I had then is no longer part of me. Almost nothing that was there and then is here now. Yet I know that who I was then and who I am now are the same person. And when I was 20, that was also me. And when I was 5, still the same.
It's interesting that I actually know that I'm the same person that fell out of a tree when I was 6, okay? I mean, I remember falling out of the tree, and I remember the experience of getting the wind knocked out of me, and I actually know that I'm that person. And there is nothing of that person that's here today. There's not a thought that kid had, there's not a cell in the body, there's not a belief, there's not anything about that kid that is true about this body-mind, okay? Nothing overlap. And yet I know that was me and this was me. Well, how can we possibly explain that except that, the one thing that's conscious, the constant that's been constant all the way through, is the consciousness, the sense of I am. When I was 6 and fell out of the tree, I had a sense that I fell out of the tree. If I fall out of a tree tomorrow, I'll have a sense that I fall out of the tree tomorrow. It's the same I. That's who I am. Not the body and the mind.
And that I am existing now. When you fall out of the tree, then.
Right now, just now. Okay, go ahead.
that I really feel I am, that has been constant throughout my entire life, is my awareness, my consciousness. The picture of my personal body, mind, mechanism within mine is changing. But who am I? Who I am is the I that is aware of my body and mind. The I that I have always been, that I was before I took this body, and that I will be after I leave this body. That I is the awareness, the consciousness that is the expression of it.
If you get that, you don't need to read anything else. You don't need to go any further.
So like I think I read the big S and the little s, the same as the I.
The biggest.
Is the I?
Yeah. We say that God, all there is consciousness, that God is consciousness, and it's expressed as impersonal individual consciousness. Consciousness with a capital C is self with a capital S. And consciousness expressed as impersonal individual consciousness, I like to think of it as myself with a capital S. And when I'm confused enough to think I'm this individual body, mind, and ego, then that's myself with a small s. Okay, that's the personal sense. And that's the Leelaa, and that's the lie. But they all have a feeling of I. And the I is the constant change. I mean, the I that I feel when I'm totally locked into my ego, the personal sense I, is in reality the I that is the individual expression, the impersonal individual expression of what is as me, the myself with the capital S. And that I is the same I that is the consciousness itself, the awareness itself that is expressing all this. And the thing that we don't get and we can't get, and there's no way you're going to get it until you get it, is that when I say, let everybody say I am. I. Say I. We're all talking about the same I. Okay? When I say I and you say I, we're talking about identical, same I. The one awareness. Expressed there, expressed here, but just the one I. There's only one I. And we keep hearing that there's just one I. There's just one I, and we look at that capital I, and we think about that one I up in the sky somewhere or something, but and then we all go around saying I, and we don't get that That eye is the one eye. You can write it with a little eye, like you come to little eyes, I mean little eyes, there's only the one eye. So all there is I. Another way of saying all there is consciousness is all there is I. And it's this I. And that I. Which is this I.
There's not a misidentified I, like a small S self. If I have the concept that I'm mind body, and I'm living in that concept, then.
But as that personal sense, what I'm saying is, as my personal sense, I have a sense that I'm mind and body. That I is the same I I'm talking about.
Sure.
No, my concept's wrong. Yeah, my concept is wrong. My concept of myself as body and mind is wrong. But the I that has that concept is still that one I. It's still that one I. Yeah. And when I say I, that's the I. I just haven't correctly identified it. That's the first thing that meditation does for us, by the way. When we first try to sit down and practice meditation, we sit there and after you do it for just a few days, you will have great familiarity with the fact that your mind runs. And you get that I'm sitting here and my mind is running, okay? And separation from my mind, okay? And then I can say, well, who are you? Who is it that's sitting here trying to meditate while your mind's running? And you're not going to tell me it's your body. That's not the I I'm talking about. So you immediately, if you're at all thoughtful, have to admit that there's a separation between I, the I that I am, and my mind and body. There it is running. So even the first week of meditation is useful. So that's the end of this chapter, and it's early. You guys want to start the next one, or what's your pleasure? I hate so many opinions. Gosh. What are you going to do? Tomorrow. Let's move on. All right, let's read the first section of human consciousness condition.
The human condition. The human condition is dual. We are spiritual beings having human experiences. Spiritual being means an eternal, infinite being whose nature is consciousness, harmony, and perfection, i.e. an impersonal, individual expression of what is. Having a human experience means believing we are these physical body-mind, separate from what is, independent entities experiencing a real world that is out there through our five senses. It means having a level of awareness which is material or mental.
The Leelaa is about expanding our awareness of what is beyond the illusion of the human experience to the reality of our spiritual being. We have been having human experiences for millennia. Lifetime after lifetime, we are born into different body minds. We bring with us what Barbara calls our karmic bank, which essentially contains our current state of awareness, all the spiritual truths we have mastered, and all the material and mental lies we still believe. It also contains the complete record of all our previous lives.
Our current role in this scene of the Leelaa is determined by how far we have progressed. We come into this lifetime with the ideal parent, sex, race, nationality, religion, etc. to facilitate mastering our next spiritual lesson. The Leelaa is really a spiritual university with infinite patience.
Unfortunately.
A lesson, problem, difficulty, is presented to us to master. If we deal with it at the level of the problem, i.e. humanly, by trying to find a way to overcome it, we flunk that lesson. But no matter, it will be presented again in a different form, perhaps in our next lifetime, if it kills us at this time. If we recognize the false belief in our individual consciousness that is permitting this problem to be in our experience, and realize the correct spiritual truth relating to the situation. If the problem dissolves, then we move up and never have to deal with that problem again. We have finally arrived at the level at which we are attending school consciously, or we wouldn't be reading this book. We can now actively pursue learning the truth, which will permit us to master our next lesson, rather than being driven to discover them through suffering.
Get that? You see what's going on? It's really not what most people think is going on, but it's really very simple, and it makes excellent sense. And if you look at it, if you pay attention, you'll see that that's what's happening, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so if we're all one eye, what bank is it talking about? Like, what continues to go from lifetime, experience to experience?
Yeah, that's what, we can load all sorts of words on it. That's the impersonal individual expression, okay? The individual impersonal expression, which is the expression of God, is, starts ignorant. Barbara's revelation was everything's born ignorant. Everything's born primitive and simple, Oak trees start out as acorns, okay? So we all started ignorant. And we learn lessons and die and come back, and the thing that comes back time after time is the impersonal individual expression, is the consciousness, is the awareness. And consciousness doesn't have levels, but awareness, the extent of our awareness has levels. So every time we learn something, we've learned it. If you master the fact that 2 + 2 is 4 this lifetime, you'll come back in knowing that, so to speak. It turns out that we have to relearn material and mental stuff, but whatever spiritual lessons you have mastered, you'll come back in next lifetime having mastered them. You don't have to go back and do them again, okay? And I don't know, some people call that the soul, and some people call it karmic data banks, and in Sanskrit we always talk about, what is the word that Robert always used for that? Now I can't think of it. Anyway, they always talk about, in Sanskrit, they talk about when you come in, you bring, they talk about tendencies, and what they mean is, essentially scripts. We bring our scripts with us. That's how we bring our scripts in our data bank. We keep our beliefs, and then we improve them, and come back next time with a different set of beliefs, or we reinforce them and come back next time with reinforced beliefs. And the fact that we come in with scripts is an indication that we're bringing something with us. So we grow spiritually, and the good news is that we can do it consciously now, up till this level of consciousness or this level of awareness. We've been doing it the hard way, the bloody way, by finding out what doesn't work. That's the most common way that people learn, is by finding out what doesn't work. And you can see that around you all the time. Now, if we're smart enough, that's why we read the Letter of Truth and listen to tapes and books and stuff like that, is to try to get an awareness of what does work rather than having to eliminate everything that doesn't work. Just like I love to tell people at the morning meeting, the steps work no matter why you work them. You can work them out of pain and they'll work, or you can work them out of greed because you want to have a pain-free life and they'll work. The steps will work regardless of why you work them. It's not required that you postpone them until pain drives you to work them. They'll work just as well if you work them today. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll stop. If you don't want to just make your mind again.
3 levels of human consciousness. We have talked about the 3 levels of human consciousness: material, mental, and spiritual, or transcendental. We've also mentioned 3 levels of personal sense that we can become aware of. 3 levels of meaning for I am. There is the self with a capital S, which is consciousness, God's pure awareness. There is the myself with a capital S, which is the impersonal individual consciousness. that what is expressed as. These two are in spiritual consciousness. And there is a third sense of myself with a little s, which I usually have in mind when I'm talking about myself. This is my human experience self, my personal sense of myself as a spiritual identity. Separate identity, with a body and a mind, separate from what is to be my own thing upon earth.
Material and mental consciousnesses are human, small s self levels of consciousness. There is nothing spiritual about manipulating material power or mental power. Nothing spiritual about knowing metaphysical truth or using mental power. Mental healing is not spiritual. Voodoo is not spiritual. Hexing is not spiritual. Affirmations are not spiritual. Myself is this personal sense. This body that was an infant, became a boy, became a man, and continues to mature. This mind that has changed its contents many, many times, and the personality that is associated with it.
That was myself with the small s. Now, myself with the capital S.
Myself is the expression of what is as impersonal individual consciousness. This I am that I am aware of. The consciousness that is aware is individual, but it's not personal. It's absolutely impersonal, without sex, without race, without religion, without nationality. It's just an individual expression of what is. It has come into the Leelaa to play the silly game of taking on body after body, lifetime after lifetime, trying to find out what God is, going through this dance from ignorance to enlightenment.
Do you get it that the I that I am doesn't have a sex? Sex is a body thing, not a consciousness thing. Consciousness is, the consciousness that is in this body and this mind is impersonal, obviously, since it's the same one that's in your body and your mind. So it has to be sexless or omnisex at least. Go ahead and read the last paragraph.
Spiritual consciousness is aware of myself and the-self. Human consciousness, myself, is aware of the body-mind phenomena, personalities, desires, and all things that are in the Leelaa. This sense of myself has to go in order to attain spiritual consciousness.
Okay, so that sort of wraps the second chapter up and brings it into this picture. The spiritual being is in the spiritual level. We have material and mental and spiritual. All right, the spiritual being is in the spiritual level of awareness. And the spiritual being, the spiritual level of awareness includes self-capital S God, and includes myself, the spiritual being that I am. It's individual expression. See, God is expressed. And that expresses spiritual beings. And so the being that I am, the spiritual being that I am, is in the spiritual level of consciousness. The being that I think I am is this body and mind is either at the mental level or the physical or the material level of consciousness. If I think I'm that body and mind, then I'm giving this the world. And the object, obviously, is to achieve transcendental consciousness, which means to become aware of the spiritual being that I am, that you are. To become aware of that being.
You want to?
If you want to, yeah, I don't care.
Achieving transcendental consciousness.
That's the next chapter.
They're all waiting.
Good. What else? Just a few minutes we can talk. Questions? Anybody have any fun with this flashcard? Anybody using the flashcards?
I think it last week I'm using them as before. It's still the same one, everything is Leelaa, or did you change it?
Last week it was everything I think was hypnosis.
Oh. I kind of tied it right into the scripture, that everything I just believe is a story, so I've been telling myself, well, what I'm thinking is hypnosis, I might as well pick a different hypnosis that makes me feel a little better. You know? It's all just a story.
It makes your kid feel better, yeah.
Yeah, well, but that paragraph about trading in our concept of human condition versus our concept of what is, you know, which I feel is, I don't know, I hate the word right, a step in the right direction, you know, so that's how it is.
Is that a hand raised?
Just a hand.
Just a hand.
Kind of what she was saying, but I was thinking when we're saying that everything's impersonal, but you can manifest more of a problem by thinking and believing in a problem. So, and good and bad doesn't really exist, but if you believe in it, that you can, you know, you're feeding into something that you're believing in, whatever. So, if you can't fight it, you might as well believe in something good and manifest the good, because then it'd be more pleasurable.
Might as well. Might as well. Exactly right. Might as well. Yeah.
This part where it talks about, you know, the little self and us seeing ourselves as separate, you know, entities and operating from that place. Isn't that part of the hypnosis too? I mean, if you're really, so when you're in that, it's really not the truth, but it's you're hypnotized into believing that you have a sense of separate self.
If you're in the material or mental state of consciousness, you are hypnotized. Period.
So when we talk about little self, it's just it really doesn't exist. It's just
that's right. It's hypnosis. That's right. That's the point. You really don't exist as you think you are. The you that you think you are really is hypnosis. It's much more personal than being hypnotized into thinking there's a cat over there with someone you may be experiencing right now. It's a lot easier to accept the fact that the cat is hypnosis than to accept the fact that the one who is hypnotized into seeing the cat is part of the hypnosis.
What cat?
You're real. You're real. Well.
But isn't that what you're saying, like how you started off as saying all we experience are concepts, not reality? That includes in myself.
That's right.
But I think I have this little self, and I'm trying to get out of my little self into the big self, and that's what I'm experiencing.
Sure. And you don't get to beat yourself up for that. I mean, that's part of the process. I mean, we're just becoming aware of all this right now and playing with it. Don't have anybody play with it, okay? Play with the fact that there are three selves. And try to notice which self you're in, you know. And play with the idea that there's no good or evil. Play with the idea that we're hypnotized.
Can I get a new flashcard?
Using your movie screen analogy, so essentially, not only the light on the screen is hypnotism, but the film in the projector, the light bulb in the projector, the projector itself is all.
Well, the way we were using that was, you know, we were talking about mind at some point, you know,
right.
And we were using sort of the
mind.
I mean, we were using the film as the play, and the projector and the screen are mind. But that's a good example to bring you back to hypnosis. I mean, when you go to see a movie, Or when you watch a DVD on television, what are you seeing? Especially on television, it's so clear on television. You're watching a DVD on television, and you're seeing this horse galloping across the screen for miles and miles and miles. This horse gallops, right? What are you really seeing? Dots changing color. You're seeing red and blue and green dots getting brighter and fainter. That's all you're seeing, okay? Everything else is added up here, okay? What's there is red and blue and green dots varying in intensity, static red, blue, and green dots. There's no motion in them at all, varying in intensity. Okay? And you're buying this movie and getting all upset about it and breaking out in sweat and crying about it and panicking and breathing hard and doing all this stuff, and you're watching little dots on a screen change intensity, okay? That's hypnosis.
Hey, Rob.
This cat, please.
We're out of here.
This is hypnosis. And those guys have had enough hypnosis. They're going to go get hypnotized by a different group. Let's see. We got to find a good flashcard. Because myself is playing with herself is hypnosis. It's weird.
So the whole fact that we're working towards a higher level of consciousness, that's hypnosis.
Yeah. But and that's what's happening. I mean, in the Leelaa, that's what's going on.
Basically, what you said, it's not about being more spiritual, it's being more aware of what already is.
Sure, yeah. You can't possibly get more spiritual. You are a spiritual being. And you can't possibly feel spiritual because feeling is material. Okay? So don't tell me you're feeling more spiritual. You can't. And you can't get more spiritual because you're already totally spiritual. And all we're doing is working on expanding our awareness.
I was thinking, if we didn't
That's
have...
hypnosis. That's the flashcard. That's the flashcard. Thinking is hypnosis. Yeah. Go ahead.
But if we didn't have the human experience and we get the bliss or spiritual enlightenment, then we would just be like a dream. I think the human experience seems like it's entertaining us just because what else would we do?
Just bliss out. Just hang out and bliss.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to be bliss all the time. That'd be great.
I don't know the why at all. This is what it is. There is no why. Robert assures us that there is absolutely no purpose. There is absolutely no why. Let's stop there.
It's pretty confident though. No why.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's stop there and get quiet and don't think you're in this quiet because that would be hypnosis. The last card is thinking is hypnosis. That's a good one. I like that one. Everything I think is hypnosis. Either version. If I'm thinking, I'm hypnotized. Okay, thanks for coming. See you next week.